Hey everybody, welcome back. I'm your host Kevin, and we're discussing my life with Tourette. So today I have a guest. Her name is Sam, and she has TS or Tourette's. So we are gonna let her tell her story and go from there, see where it goes. So, without further ado, hi Sam. So, I guess we could start with
Your mom.
when when you got diagnosed, we can go with
Okay.
what age? What age, I guess you would say, did you get diagnosed?
21. We'll say it was 21 or 22 years old. Somewhere
Okay.
in there.
Now you I know we talked a little bit on the phone. You said you had signs of Tourette's from a younger age, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like elementary.
Now, I guess I would ask, like, what are some of the, if you remember, or if
All
anybody had
that.
told you, what were some of the signs back then?
When it came to elementary, I think I was just very loud and aggressive, obnoxious, and so like a lot of movements would go unnoticed if you're a bouncing kid all the time. But it kind of got pushed off as like uh so my last name's Harward. So they'd be like, oh, she's just a crazy Harward, or she's just being Bam Bam, because I would kind of like roughhouse with my cousins and stuff. So like it went unnoticed at that age. And then it was about middle school when I started becoming self-aware of my body's doing things that I did not tell it to do. And at the middle school, it was like my arm would jerk out, my leg would kick up, and someone would be like, what are you doing? And I was like, I glitched, I don't know. And we'd all laugh it off. So it went kind of like no one like thought much of it, I guess.
Yeah. It's funny you say the glitch thing, because I was doing a thing for a while, and I had titled it something like, I'm just glitching.
Yeah. I like
Because
that.
like I totally find, like, when you twitch, like, your brain's glitching. Like, that's
Yeah.
my thought on it. Like, I just had a glitch in my brain. But anyways, okay, so you noticed kind of then that some things were happening, people around you kind of knew some things were going on.
Yeah.
Um now,
Hello.
once you fully got diagnosed, I'm assuming that kind of helped, like, I guess, how would I say that? Kind of helped you understand and identify more what was going on, being you had
Uh,
a name to it.
it was actually before I got diagnosed. It was about right after I graduated that I was like, oh, there's something wrong with me. Doing a bunch of research, figuring it all out, and then that's when I figured out what Tourette's was. So this was before I was diagnosed, and so I spent like a year or two on my own still, like trying to cope with it because I didn't even think about getting diagnosed or anything.
Yeah.
It wasn't. So at that point, I was like, I'm gonna figure out everything. I've already been trying to do my coping mechanisms on my own, and so I went to the psychiatrist and I was like, "This is what I got. Here's all my info." And they were like, "Yeah, you don't gotta tell me. I can tell you got Tourette's." Um, so for getting like diagnosed, that was kind of like the confirmation I needed to know that like it's real. It's
Yeah.
real. Because I went my whole life kind of brushing it off, like, no, I don't got anything. Mm-mm.
And I know,
Um,
like we had talked on the phone earlier, how you were like, you know, there was all the other ones as well, which I think you had said ADHD and OCD.
I got ADHD, OCD, autism, anxiety, and PTSD on top of the Tourette's.
You
I
are
think that's
just,
everything.
whew, it's just a whirlwind of stuff. Now, can
Yeah.
I ask, like, how do you cope with all of that together? Like, is it easy to deal with all of it together? Because I know, like mine, I just have ADHD and Tourette's.
Right.
So, and now that I'm older, I've been able to understand my Tourette's more,
Mm-hmm.
whereas, and my ADHD more. Whereas when I was younger, like real young, like I never really put two and two together on any of it, especially the
Right.
ADHD. Like the
Mm-hmm.
ADHD, I didn't really hone in on until I was older. But with you having all these other ones, you know, and all, how do you cope with it the best, should I say? Or
Uh,
is there a way?
there's
Or
there's
is there a
multiple
way?
ways. Um, when it came, so okay, on the bright side, my autism's mild, which is nice.
Okay.
So it doesn't affect me too much. Now it did when I was younger. I would like completely avoid gatherings, anything like that, people, blah blah. But coping wise, there's so many. There's one thing I learned before I even knew what Tourette was or anything. It's I don't know the proper word for the therapy it is, but it's a type of breathing exercise. You breathe through your nose, out your mouth. Um, and I kind of learned that subconsciously that kind of helps with the anxiety and the tick happening, and then being autistic and being self-aware. Everyone's watching you, have that. So you just kind of,
Yeah, yeah.
you're so a lot of breathing exercises has helped me with coping. My brain is blanking.
So would you say the breathing thing has helped, I guess you would say, in a huge way for the most
It
part?
helps calm me down very quickly. Just so that, because okay, if I got all the things and there's first, second, third,
Yeah.
to keep the other things trying to not compete with the first chair or whatever, the breathing calms me down so that my tics are not. I'm not repeating things over and over. I'm not yelling. Usually the breathing comes in when I'm like having the really loud yelling, screaming, repeating of words.
Yeah.
That's when I do the breathing the most.
Okay. Um and another thing I wanted to ask you, you know, from our talk on the phone earlier to now and everything, is aside from the OCD, the ADHD, the autism, and all of that, and I know you had also said you have seizures as well,
Mm-hmm.
if I
Yes.
remember right. So my thing is, like, emotionally, does that really, like, can that affect you emotionally, like all them different things at
Oh
any
yeah.
time? I mean,
I mean,
I would
so
imagine, like, emotionally that could put a big toll on you.
I when I started figuring out there was something wrong with me and I was ignoring it, it made me a very like angry child. When it came to middle school and high school, I was just angry. And funny enough, anger is the only emotion I can feel that my tics are just like they'll just stop, because
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
guess my brain focuses the most because it's probably the adrenaline, with ADHD and stuff. Um, Whoa, my brain's
Yeah,
blanking. We're talking about emotions, right?
yeah,
I I kind of when I was finally figuring out like okay, I probably do have all these things, I was very upset about it and it made me very emotional and I already felt like I didn't feel in like connect with everyone. It always just made me very sad because like even with like family gatherings, I couldn't engage with conversation. I couldn't comprehend when someone was speaking to me because that's going through my head is hold still, don't do
yeah, yeah,
anything.
yeah.
And so I'd run off to the bathroom. I'd run off to hide in the car or something, and that just resulted in me just being very sad and alone a lot. Because I did not want anyone knowing there was something wrong with me.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Now, I know you said you got diagnosed, like fully diagnosed later and all, but
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how about now? Like you and your TS, like facing society, facing the world. Are you, is it at all a uncomfortable situation at any time? Because like for me, like with my TS, like so I cough to where I gag. Like nobody
Mm-hmm.
sees that, but maybe my fiance and close family members and
Oh,
friends.
that's a
And
good. Okay, yeah. So, behind closed doors is when I can fully just let my tics exist. And a lot of my tics are from a lot of trauma in my life. So I have the baby voice and I'll say things like no or no thank you, stuff like that, and I do it like over and over, and I will only allow the full max capacity of my tics to be behind closed doors or with my partner. Um, I don't even like my friends seeing that. I definitely don't like family or strangers seeing that because I feel, you know.
yeah, it gets overwhelming. And that's like
Mhm.
me. Like I'm the same way as like I don't want people aside from very, very, very tight, close knit group to see it. Because then there's like that cast of judgment, or like, are they going to say something? Stuff like that. Like, that's how I feel, and I'm 100% with you on that. Like, if you don't see me, like, if you would see me away from this camera in this house by myself, it's full fledged. It's
Yeah.
funny. I had a guy I worked with. He told me one time the best expression used for it. When I get home, I let loose because nobody sees me. That, and I'm assuming like that's you too, because that's me all the
Yeah.
way.
A lot of people with TS are suppressing them out in public most of the time because and it's also exhausting. You don't want to be exhausted while like you're out and about or something. So when you get
Yeah,
home, you're exhausted from holding it in, and then you're exhausted from trying to be, have a life. And by the time I
yeah,
get home, I usually crash out and I have a tic attack or a seizure, and I'm kind of just done for the next 4 hours. It's just like nonstop.
yeah,
And
yeah,
it's
yeah.
really painful.
Now, with the trauma, I don't want you to. I don't need you to, or don't. You don't have to go too in depth. I don't want you to go too in depth. But you say the trauma and all, and I know you told me on the phone the trauma has caused a big impact in your ticks. How, in what ways did that trauma, like, how has that trauma made your ticks so bad?
Um,
Like, what, I mean, I know what you told me it was. I don't really want to go over that, but
yeah.
like that trauma, why is it causes the flare ups? I
I
guess you would
guess
say.
let's put it this way: the timeline, right? You got boom, boom, boom of events, and you're already in the mindset of hold it in. No one knows. Everyone's gonna think there's something wrong with you. So every time an event happens, I was already suppressing it, and I just feel like it probably did something physically and emotionally to me to the point where my body just crashed out. And
Yeah,
then it takes forever to heal through that. Um, Mind you, I didn't get help for a lot of my trauma. I didn't tell anyone. So it was
yeah, yeah,
just
yeah, yeah,
built
yeah,
up, built up, built up. Um, and then with it going continuously through childhood, teenage years, it got so bad to the point where I just I could no longer hold in the tics. I could no longer hide it or anything. And then that messed with me mentally because I kind of avoided all my trauma, like comprehending it. And I'm avoiding comprehending the disorders, and it kind of just full stopped my
yeah,
whole
yeah,
life.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, and it's crazy. Like you was telling me that, and talking about it now, that to think like a traumatic event, because like I've read like certain things will make Tourette's occur, like brain injuries or something like that, but
Yeah.
like I've never heard of something like that where like you have a traumatic incident that's not a brain injury fully,
Hmm.
and it can happen like that. That's very interesting. A very interesting fact. So, with that, how do you, because I mean, everybody always listens to me talk about my stuff, but another person with TS, I got to know from your perspective, how do you
for a living?
How do you feel about dealing with it in public when it does happen? Like, is it like me where it's like a huge uncomfortable situation? If they do happen, like, because like me, like I could suppress them, but there is that once in a blue moon where it's just like, yeah, I can't hold it back no more. It's coming out.
Funny
Like,
enough.
does that make you feel uncomfortable at all, or how do you deal with it?
Old me, younger me. Oh yeah, I got very uncomfortable. I was scared. But because I was so scared with how much anxiety I have, I avoided just being out altogether. I was constantly staying behind closed doors. It wasn't until I figured out, I think it's another type of sucking penises, type of therapy. I don't know the name, but if you have a tick, let's say like this was the tick. Your hand moved. As soon as it moves, you hold it. You keep and you just hold it. And then it kind of like, instead of doing it over and over, you do it that one time, and then it kind of finally releases through your body. And I learned to do that and try, obviously, to not have verbal tics. Motor tics, that's gonna happen in public. But if I can at least suppress the verbal tics to stay in the motor tics and do that, no one's really noticing too much. And then that's helped me to feel more comfortable being out in public and no one's like looking, because I'm like, I'm aware my body's moving, but no one's thinking about it. No one's noticing too much.
Now is it? I gotta know, because like, over my 30 years of having it, I think you're like the fourth person I've associated with that has Tourette in the 30 years.
You are my first.
Hey, there's always a first to meet somebody with TS, right?
Right, yeah.
So like my thing is like, okay, so being in public can definitely be a hard situation when that flare up happens that you just can't control or whatever, But would you say it's hard to, like, for me, when it does come out, that once in a while that it does, it's like, okay, cool, I got released, I got relief, whatever. But do you feel it's harder to keep it in than it is to let it out in public?
Harder or easier to let it out?
Yeah, like in public, do you feel it would be easier if you could just let it out? Yeah. Or do you think it's easier just to hold it in?
No, it's painful to hold them in. When I don't know about everyone else, but when I hold them in, basically how I've described it is, you think about your spine to your head down, it's like a shock. Kind of just goes through my whole body. And that's what I feel if I hold it in. I know like some people describe it as like holding in a sneeze, but for me it's so much more painful.
Hey, no lie, that's how I explain it to anybody and everybody that asks. I'm like, just think of you holding in a sneeze to where it builds up, and you just poof, let it out. Yeah. That's me. But it's very interesting that yours is a little different.
Oh yeah.
So yours is more of like a whole body pain.
Basically when it flares up, have tic-tac seizure, because of that shock that's going on in me, by the time I sit down or something, I even fall down a lot of the times when it happens, Yeah. My whole torso is the main thing that's jerking over and over and over and over. And then the rest of my limbs just lock up. My arms lock up, my legs lock up, my neck probably, locks up.
Yeah. Now, also, another thing I want to cover about what we talked about earlier is the stiffening ones. What you said you called them?
Dystonic tics.
Yeah.
Dystonic. Yeah.
Can you enlighten the people out there like you did
So
me exactly what that is?
so growing up, didn't know. So I thought it was paralysis. That's like the only thing I knew of that where your body, you can't move it. You can't, your hand's stuck, your leg's stuck, you're laying there stuck, you're frozen,
Yeah.
right? The paralysis. And yes, it can be very, very painful because the muscles are tightened up and they're having muscle spasms.
Yeah.
Um, and so basically I thought that was paralysis and I found out it's dystonic tics. Um, and it can happen from anywhere from like a few seconds to, I think the longest one I've personally had is in like an hour. And it can even affect my eyes, where like my eyes will be,
Wow.
and I can't open them. And I have, when I was very angry, when, not knowing what was happening, and I would try to force my body um, to move, when it's frozen, stuck, whatever, it hurt. Like, I couldn't
Yeah.
undo it. It would, what's the word? Tense? No. When you like pull like a nerve or something. What is that?
Mm-hmm. I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of what it felt like when I would try to undo it. And then that would stress me out, freak me out more. And when you think, you don't know what it is, and you think you're freaking paralyzed, you're panicking the whole time. And so it's just like a repeat over and over, like, and it's
Yeah.
still
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
upsetting even now. Like, cause I'll be like, we'll be getting out of the car, and my legs just like will be like stuck, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
have to
Yeah.
wait, now, and I can't do anything. I'm just, we have to exist until it wants to work again. But yeah,
Can I also ask, like, what? Because everybody with Tourette's has triggers that sparks their Tourette's.
yeah.
Well, to give you an insight on mine is, and this is so crazy. I've only told one person this, and they thought it was quite funny. If a fly, this is no kidding, if a fly flies in front of my face or lands anywhere on my face, instantly I'm triggered. Instantly. I don't know what it is. I don't know why, but if it flies in front of my face or it lands on my face, instantly I'm ticking.
That's crazy.
It's so annoying. It really is, because it's
Yeah.
like I could be driving and there's a fly in my car. It's like, dude, I roll down the window, just get out my car, please get out my car.
Mhm.
But so what are your ticks? I mean triggers. What are your triggers?
Yeah, triggers. I actually wrote this down. My
Oh,
main
really?
ones are loud noises, loud voices, or loud music. Anything abruptly loud. So all of a sudden a siren, all of a sudden someone's raising their voice, instantly puts me into a tic attack or a seizure immediately. Like my body, and that is probably because it's trauma based. Because of that, I grew
Yeah.
up in a household where my parents loved loud music. I'm talking the house sounded like a concert every night when they would get home. And it kind of sucked because I would be in my room and I'd be laying there and I would just seizure over seizure over seizure, and then I'm just so drained and I'm a zombie.
Yeah.
And that was probably one of the crappiest things, which is again why I avoided letting anyone know. Another one though is extreme coldness or extreme heat. If I get too cold, instantly my body is shutting down and I'm just having the full body jerks like that. That's what my body's doing.
Wow.
And then extreme heat. It's just such a discomfort. I feel like when with Tourette's, you are constantly uncomfortable in your skin. Like there's just something
Very.
always happening. So as soon as you are very cold or very hot, you kind of lose it. You're like, yeah, I'm done. I got no.
So you got to find like that perfect temperature.
I'm constantly going back and forth between turning the fan on, off, putting my heating blanket on, off, putting a hoodie on, off. Oh, it's constant. I'm talking like every 5
Well, and then where
minutes.
you live in the winter, I mean, that's gotta suck.
Yeah, I'm in Washington now, and honestly, I've grown up in Utah my whole life, and the weather is so bipolar there. it, I remember I'd be like, okay, we're good. It's cooled down again. The next day it was hot, and I had things planned, and I'm just like, well, I can't do
Not
anything now. I'm
not
stuck
today.
having ticks now.
Well, and
um,
it's crazy. Like you say, the heat. Oh my God, it would be so bad if you lived down here in the South with
oh,
the
I have
humidity and all. Oh my God.
humidity. No, my birth mom moved to St. George in Utah, and every time she tried to have me come for the summer, it was a nightmare. And she was probably, wondering at a young age, why is this child so angry? And I'm just like, I can't tell you, but I'm angry because I'm ticking even more now.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. Like it's just making it even worse.
yeah. So
Well, and
sadly, that.
that's really that's crazy. I never would have thought, and it's crazy. We had talked earlier. Everybody's ticks are different. Everybody's Tourette's are different,
Yeah,
and the triggers too. And I never really looked up triggers or really like
I
researched it
haven't
and all
either.
that stuff. But I know mine are weird, and like to hear that one is like crazy. Like I never would have thought.
Okay, what about eating? Because, like, if I'm hungry, my ticks start happening. And after I eat, I call them food tick attacks. And I feel like it's the body is experiencing something so extreme, dopamine if you're enjoying your food or something, that right after, I'm just like, boom, 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 boom. And I have to, like, wait for it to die down. And it will take me, like, an hour or two for it to just finally, okay, we're good, I'm done.
No way. That's interesting. That's very interesting.
Do you not
For me,
experience that?
no. For me, my triggers are
Oh.
driving, talking on the phone, fly in my face, which is so like when it happens, I'm like why? Why is this happening right now?
Mm-hmm.
But those are really my triggers. Is the driving and talking on through the
Oh.
phone through the car on the phone.
Yeah.
Oh my God! Like I try to avoid it at all costs. I'm just like, no, we're not doing this. This ain't happening.
I think.
And what's crazy, you say loud music and all, you bring up music. Music is one of the key things that suppresses my
No, no,
tics.
no. Don't get me wrong. They helped me. That's how I got through high school with earbuds. I'm
Oh,
talking
it's just
full
if it's really
concert.
loud.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
talking
if it's
full
really loud.
concert. Like bass is just happening. It's bass specific that it could even be a low, like in the background. Maybe it's someone's car or something. Holy crap, that is the worst trigger. I swear that was the worst thing ever.
Really?
I have to avoid it. That's yeah. I hate that one. It like hurts my head, and I'm just like, and it's all my brain can focus on too. And I don't know if
Yeah,
that's
yeah, yeah.
the ADHD, OC. I don't know what it is.
Well, I mean, with all that going on though, that's really cool. You still say the hell with it, get out there and do your thing. Because I mean, I know, like me, I have a minor case, and I know people out there have super severe or even minor than mine. But
Mm-hmm.
like my thing is like anybody with Tourette's, if you could go out there and face the world, especially if you have the severe cases or like yours, the heat, the cold, and all that, to be able to go out there and face it, like that's huge. Like I don't know if you call it attaboys, big, whatever. Like that's a
Yeah,
big thing for me because I've been there. Like I hadn't told you, but probably 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago, I actually had to leave work for 2 months. It had almost disabled me, my Tourette's.
I was listening to your podcast about that. Yeah,
I broke ribs. I've broken 3 ribs because of my cough.
yeah,
So like, and
that's
it's just,
scary.
but I find, and maybe you can agree, I find it real crazy. Like not only how bad they could really get, but like the fact that people don't really understand like the full depth of TS.
I think
You know,
yeah. I hate that because one of the things that bothers me is when you can't work. I can't work. Uh, Working actually just triggers the crap out of my ticks. Even that alarm waking up in the morning, if I don't get proper sleep. I'm having really bad tics all day. But,
Yeah.
and so I already have sleeping problems, like insomnia and stuff. So going to work, everything with the anxiety heightened. It was getting to the point where I was just having seizures on the floor, and I was getting let go. But my point is, trying to get onto disability, Tourette's is literally the only case that's not on there. Like, they're like, yeah, you can still get on it, but it's not one of the listed things, and it bothers me because people have not researched it enough, don't understand, because we're literally masking all the time. 90% of people that even like know me, they're gonna be like, you don't have Tourette's. I've never seen it. And it's because we're suppressing it all the time, and then we're going behind closed doors and having the worst 4 hours of our life of just pure pain, and then we have to do that every single day, over and over and over. So if you add like trying to like work or something,
See, I have a guy at work that told me, I think you'll get a kick out of it. I got a kick out of it. He told me, oh, your head, because like how you see me right now, that's me at work most of the time. I just let out that mild cough that I have. Mm-hmm. He straight up told me, your head doesn't move. You don't have Tourette's. I was like,
God.
I'm like, we're not talking about Parkinson's? No. Yeah, so it's crazy because, like, that really is the thing, is like, they see something on TV of Tourette's, and unless that's you, or unless you're doing that exact thing, well, then you don't have Tourette's. But then, like you said, majority of the population suppresses them. Because, I mean, it's an uncomfortable thing at the end of the day to have to go out there and, you know, let that out. Because you know someone's saying something, or somebody's staring, or, you know, whatever other uncomfortable thing that can occur.
I want to add, that's because I didn't know what anything was. And obviously, with Tourette's, yes, you're constantly having them. But you have moments where you're okay for a minute, or it's very calm where you don't even notice yourself that you're ticking. Yeah. And I feel like on TV or things, what is it? Out Loud Bailey, or that whole show, it's it's more triggering to be on a camera or something. You're like, people are only going to see the most max thing, and then you think like, well, then do I have Tourette's if I'm not ticking every 2 seconds when I'm brushing my teeth or something, you know? And I feel like people don't know that, and I feel like it'd be reassuring for people who have Tourette's that it's like, it's okay that you are not ticking 24/7. I mean, we don't want to tick anyways, so
no,
the less
definitely.
ticks you have in a day, the better.
You ain't lying about that.
Yeah.
I gotta know, like, what is your thoughts? Because I've talked about this before, I think a couple times. The misconception of Tourette's. What do you think, in your opinion? I'll tell you mine after. Okay. Is the biggest misconception of Tourette's? If you had to say, like, number one, what is it?
We'll put it into like a little story. I remember finally telling my parents, and they were like, I think that's funny because that means you swear, and I think that's funny because you can't get, like, it's the whole swearing thing. I'm like, most people with Tourette's don't swear. It's like, I think it's like 10% that swear.
Yeah, exactly. If I'm not mistaken, yes, 10%.
Yeah, and like, that's all that people see it as, and then it bothers me because they're like, oh, it's just an excuse so you can swear and you can say whatever you want, or I have a tic where I mock people, or I repeat you or something, and so people see it as, oh, it's just an excuse to not be a nice person or something, and that's really insulting because you're just like, in my head, one of my verbal tics is the hard R. I'm like, how miserable and awful I feel every time that comes out of my mouth, and I'm always like, I'm so sorry, and I'm like reassuring, and like, yeah, so I think that's the biggest thing.
It's funny you bring up the excuse. I had somebody tell me my Tourette's is just an excuse. That was all they said. But I'm like, I told my fiance, and I'm like, what kind of thing could I use Tourette's for as an excuse? Like, I was confused by that. Like, how do you use Tourette's as an excuse in any way, shape, or form of life? If anything, it's more miserable than it is an excuse.
Oh, it is so miserable. Yeah, no, to just living with Tourette's is miserable because you're constantly having to explain to people, you're constantly apologizing, trying to be like, oh, I have Tourette's, and they have to explain it over and over and over, and no,
Yeah.
there's no, uh, there's no benefits to it at all. Like, there's no
No,
benefits
no.
to
And,
Tourette's.
and like, don't get me wrong. Like, I do think it's cool that, I say cool. I think it is very nice that I have something I can educate people on.
Yeah.
You know, I can educate the world on something, but at the same time, it's like, am I happy I have it? No. Like, I don't think anybody can ever be like, yay, I got Tourette's. Woohoo.
Literally.
You know, I don't really think that's a big thing. Now, I just did an episode, and I don't know if you watched it, but I want your opinion on this. If you would wake up and your Tourette's was gone, in my opinion, I would feel more different with them gone than with them here. Because I've had them 30 years. You know, like
Right.
for me, it would be like, I'd feel more unnormal not having them than having them. But I want to know, like, what's your opinion on that? Like, how do you think you would feel in that situation?
Funny enough, I first learned that there's actually no real medicine that makes Tourette's go away or cures it or anything like that.
Mm-mm.
And when you go to like a primary care doctor that doesn't really know what it is, they're shoving down these like antidepressants, these other things that will help
Mm-hmm.
it. And I'm thinking, and I've always said it, I don't take medicine, I don't like medicine. So I'm like, I don't want to be different. I am, this is me. I would feel not myself if I wasn't, I wouldn't even function the same. You go your whole life learning how to cope with like ADHD or anxiety or something. You learn to work a certain way. You try, minus Tourette's, well, but you try to use those other disorders to your advantage. With ADHD, better cleaning things. You can whatever, right? And if it was all gone, you would just have to restart. I feel like if you
Yeah.
woke up with it all gone, you're just restarting life, and you're confused and you're scared because you're like, what's going on?
All right.
And then it makes you just question everything. I feel like I would question everything, and I'm like, why am I not moving? I mean, it's
Like,
nice.
yeah. And like for
But like,
me,
what?
like I had talked about in the episode, like for me, it was like, I would be like, okay, well, when am I gonna twitch? Or like,
Oh yeah,
when,
you'd
like,
be
like,
anticipating it.
yeah, like, is a tick about, like, what? So I used to play soccer as a kid, and the USA men's team back then, they had a goalkeeper called Tim Howard, and he had Tourette's. And I remember reading a quote from him, and it was something along the lines of like, if I woke up and I didn't have Tourette's, it wouldn't feel right. Not in a good way, not in a bad way. It just wouldn't feel right.
I feel like you were swapped, given a new body.
Yeah, and like I think like I totally relate to that quote because it's true. Like you live with it, especially like people like us or people older than me that have had it for so long, and then it's just poof gone. Like I just feel there would be like that, that what is going on thing.
Yeah. I
But
mean,
go ahead.
I think the only bright side, if I were to wake up without it, is less pain. And
Yeah,
most people are fatigued, chronic pain all the time. No matter what disorder you have, they're all connected in some
yeah,
way. I feel like truly there would not be a huge difference. Even with like autism and ADHD, there is ticks with that as well. Like, I feel like there'd be no difference other than you're questioning when is the next one going to happen, and then it might start stressing you out because you're just like, well, I've been good for 2 hours. Can I go do this then? Can I go get a job again? And then,
Yeah.
and I've actually done that. One phase of my life, I was good for 2 months. It was like the nicest 2 months of my life. I was avoiding every trigger. I was doing really good, creative wise, whatever. And so I tried to get a job again. I lasted 2 days, bro. I lasted 2 days. And then I all came back. Like all these years of like working to cope and function well, and because I feel like with living with Tourette's, it's like this freaking game of trying to get to that point where you can finally function decently enough. You know what to avoid. You know how to help yourself. And then so I got to that point, and so as soon as I went back to work, it's like I took everything away again, and I just was back to zero. And it took literally over a year to finally get to where I was again.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Now, another thing is like, do you, and this is for me as well, do you like for me, I wake up, not necessarily the minute I open my eyes, but not too long after I wake up. It's like intense. Like for some reason, like for me, first thing in the morning is probably the worst, and driving. Is that kind of for you too? Like when you wake up in the morning, is it instant or does it kind of build up?
I'm definitely opposite. It's the evening where mine start becoming the worst. It's almost like that sleep finally relaxes me enough, and I'm from pain and all that I'm good. I'm still having them. Maybe I have a little verbal tick here and there or something. But yeah, it's the buildup of the day. Unless, like when I was working and I was going to school, it was immediately. As soon as that alarm hit, instant, full blown, and then it was just constant for the whole day. Driving though, I don't. Driving is like such a relaxing thing for me to have the driving, the music, the wind. Like it was just such a perfect thing for me. So I actually used to drive a lot.
So you would say opposite of me when it comes to driving with Tourette's then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I would say. Well, lucky you. Because let me tell you what, I wish I could just chill and drive.
Right.
So before we go, I gotta know is if anything, what would be advice you would give to, because let's face it, the youth of today, I mean, I know you're still kind of young, but the even younger generation, the bullying and the discomfort of being around your other peers. It's like, because I have a local support group I'm a part of, and one of the women in there, her son has, I always forget it, coprolilia, right?
Mm-hmm.
He has it as well. Yeah, right. He has it, and the uncomfortableness and the bullying and the way schools don't really take well to Tourette's. So my main question is like, you have any advice you could give anybody out there, youth, maybe adults struggling with it? Any advice for the TS that you think people could benefit from, if any? From what you've learned over the years.
Doesn't matter who it is, family, friends, strangers, work, coworkers, whatever. As soon as there is one negative person in your life, and you have done nothing wrong, they're just negative. They're bullying you. They're questioning you all the time. Because you're ticking or something. Just even if it's not with the TS, like if there's just someone negative, immediately leave them from. Like just get them out of your life. no point. It's going to make tics worse. It's going to make your anxiety worse. And it wasn't until a few years ago that I finally was removing all of these negative things, people in my life, that I finally was like finding good people to be around. Now I have friends, my family, my partner, that is just like, my partner will literally go out and be like, beforehand, he'll be like, hey, my partner has Tourette's, this is what it is. You know, don't be negative, whatever, you know? And now I get to just have positive people around me that, you know, I can just exist. And being comfortable around people, it sometimes makes the Tourette's more calm, or, you know. Yeah. So the more negative people or experiences or whatever in your life, like if the goal is to have less, get that out of your life, no matter how much it sucks.
Oh, very much so.
Yeah.
Well, I must say, Sam, I appreciate you coming on. Thank you for sharing your stuff. Thank you for your insight on everything. And hopefully we can keep learning more and more. Till next time.